because the stock was closed in those shops, and the landlords were unwilling to give them a waiver of rent. So initially, the traders and ourselves requested that government intervene so that there's a win-win situation on both the landlord side and the traders side. This didn't happen. So the traders absorbed that shock. Now, around the same time, 2020, 2019, government introduced the IFRIS solution that you just mentioned, the electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution. That solution came in during the COVID-19 period, so it wasn't enforced much.
Yes.
It was there, but you could use it, you couldn't use it, although VAT registered taxpayers were requested to use the IFRIS solution. Now, of course, since then, we've had a bit of recovery. Government put in place various initiatives to support the recovery of businesses, like the Small Business Recovery Fund. Government put aside some resources in the Uganda Bank, in the Microfinance Support Center, all this to support the recovery of businesses. Sadly, not many benefited for one reason or another. Some of it rotated around the criteria, some rotated around the readiness of the businesses themselves, but in the end, not many businesses have benefited from these initiatives. So now you have government saying we want to expand the tax base, because the truth is our tax to GDP ratio is very low. The sub-Saharan tax to GDP ratio is about 18%. Here, we are at around 14%. And most countries, it's recommended that you're around 20 or so percent. So government is keen to raise this. More so because very many donors have pulled back their funding, particularly the World Bank and others. So government wants to see how do we fill that gap now that this funding is out of the picture. So that's the background to the IFRIS solution. So government said, let us emphasize enforcement. Let's make sure that those people who should be using the IFRIS solution and paying their appropriate tax are paying it. Now, I'll start from the trader's side or from the business side. There are some people who should be using IFRIS that have not been using IFRIS. Why? Because they have not been declaring correct amounts to URA to say that, because in order for you to use IFRIS and for you to be value-added tax registered, you must have a turnover of at least 150 million.
Which some of the traders feel should also be lifted.
Very true. But what has been happening is that some of them have been under-declaring, in which case they were not falling within the VAT bracket. Then you also had the issue of people using fictitious invoices. Okay? Because the way VAT works is that you pay VAT to your input supplier, whoever that is, for your inputs.
Yes.
But then you also charge your customer VAT. But before you remit to URA, you remove the VAT that you paid for your input. So that's called input tax. And then output tax is what you charge the client. Then you pay the difference.
Okay.
Now, what you have sometimes, if you show that you paid more money than you paid, it means that you pay less money to URA. See? So this has also been the practice on this other side. Now, from the URA side, when they went about enforcement, what did they do wrong? First of all, they did not engage. They tried to do a bit of education, but it could be that the methods or the techniques they used targeted a different group. You see, you can be promoting IFRIS, and then you go to a music show, for instance. These are not the people who are going to pay VAT, for instance. VAT. So yes, you are marketing, but probably you are marketing to a wrong audience. So my suspicion is URA may have marketed to the wrong people. The actual people that should have received this information did not either receive it or did not understand it. So what you see is a misunderstanding of IFRIS completely. Some people thought it was a tax. In fact, from the initial stages, the traders were insisting that it's a tax. Some people don't know that if you don't earn 150 million, you have no business talking about IFRIS. So there was a weakness on the URA side with educating people before rolling out this solution. The second mistake they made as URA was to be very high-handed in implementing IFRIS. sometimes they would, for instance, stop customers and they ask you, where did you buy these things? Oh, I bought them from X, take us. Then when they take you, they find that trader 6 million Ugandan shillings, the penalty. And we thought the penalty was also excessive. You see, this 6 million, you can't, because if someone makes 6 mistakes and 6 means they have paid 36 million. So the penalty was excessive. There was a bit of high-handedness on the URA side. There was limited education. So the traders have tried to engage URA and other, the Ministry of Finance particularly, prior to the strike. But I think what was happening is that on one hand, the concession would be made in the meeting, but in practice, the changes would not happen. For instance, they complained about the very strict enforcement in the Chikubo area. And whereas the URA had them out, there was no immediate change. So that's why you see them now going for the strike. I personally wouldn't have taken that as a first option, because we believe in dialogue. You dialogue until you find a solution. But anyway, that is a decision that was taken to have the strike. If you recall, there are two groups. There's the Futa group, and then there's the Kasita group.
The Kasita group. And the Kasita group was very vocal here.
Yeah, that's true. Futa initially announced the strike starting on the 8th. And maybe there was also a bit of internal competition. Kasita now said we are starting on the 16th.
On the 16th.
Okay.
There was one that happened. It didn't take a week. The
8th. Yeah, the 8th one. Now the 16th one started, and it seems that the 16th one now was more inclusive. You had more people striking and so.
Okay.
So, and then what happened? What happened is that the Ministry of Finance organized a meeting with the traders on the 16th of April. The traders raised various issues. One was the IFRIS solution that I've just talked about, and the challenges with its operation. And I want to emphasize that, in my view, IFRIS as a solution is not bad. It's the way it was rolled out that was a problem.
It was difficult for the traders to understand what they're
It's complex. I think first of all, the system itself needs to be adapted to the local market. It could be that someone lifted it from somewhere else and just tried to dump it here the way it is.
Uganda.
No? So they need to study. If I'm charging IFRIS on a trader, how should I go about it? You know, you've heard about this Kuyiriba business where there are people who don't own the goods,
but they are acting like brokers.
They are acting like brokers. Now, if you target these people, you're being very unfair. They're adding no value. Because the issue with VAT is that you are charging value add. Okay? So a broker moving from one shop to the other, we can't really count that as value add. Okay? So there is the issue of IFRIS. There is the issue of the value added tax threshold. They said it's too low. It needs to go up to about 1 billion shillings. And we agree with them. Yeah, the compliance costs of VAT are high. If it's too low, it means you'll have a restaurant owner, you'll have a shopkeeper somewhere, you have a wholesaler. You know, the costs are so high. So it's better we raise that threshold so that you really focus on those people that you know are going to give you ample traction. Because if you bring in so many people and you get a lot of opposition, it means the solution does not pick up.
And Mr. Olgembe, one would wonder, why do we reach a time of having traders shut down their shops? Because this is something that we had last seen during COVID with the mandate lockdown, where you're seeing Kampala really closed.
Yeah.
Because it was a total shutdown of business in downtown Kampala, and that is the heart.
No, I think it's an indictment on our ability to solve problems.
Okay.
Because, as I've told you, they met the Ministry of Finance, and the traders disagreed. The Ministry of Finance issued a statement. The traders said, no, we want to meet the president. So the fact that we are unable to resolve these issues without involving the president, because the president should be the last resort. You know, there's a government, there are ministers, there are departments. It should be their job to develop policies in consultation with the end user, so that you don't give the president unnecessary work to clean up your mess, because this is what it is. Because what is the problem with educating people and hand-holding them and so on? So there was the issue of VAT that they raised. There's the issue of the investors that they raised, foreign investors, whom they say are dominating the value chain. They are manufacturing, they are wholesaling, they are retailing, they are doing everything. They're even going into rural markets. That is something that they raised. Then they raised the issue of the 35% import duty on fabrics and garments. Okay? These are the issues that they raised the Ministry of Finance. Now, I know IFRIS has taken center stage, but I would want to touch on some of those issues. For instance, on the issue of fabric and garment, I do not agree with the traders. The decision to impose a 35% import duty on fabrics and garments was taken by the East African community.
To ensure that they support the local...
To ensure that they support the local
textile industry.
The emergence, because that's also something we must say. Because people say, what are you protecting? It is not there. No, we are saying, let us create the conditions that can ensure the emergence of a vibrant textiles and apparel sector. Because no country has developed without first investing in the textiles and apparel sector. If you look at the Industrial Revolution in Europe, the UK developed because it built this. If you look at China itself, if you look at all these East Asian countries, it's the first layer of industrialization. So on this point, I do not agree with the traders. The traders want to continue business how they've been doing it, so that this place just becomes a supermarket for other countries. We are saying no. And I think government has made it clear that their focus is on export promotion and import substitution. So on this point, I cannot agree with them. If they are saying the investors come and set up workshops and put to, because if you say, if you import a complete shirt, they charge you 35% duty. Why have they put 35? To discourage you from importing.
Continuing with the importation.
Then, if you import semi-processed, semi-finished shirt, they charge you 25%. So what these investors do, they bring in the shirt, they bring in the collars separately, this one separately, then they put it together and sell. Why don't you do that? That is what the law seeks to do. Set up a workshop. What is the problem?
Okay.
Because the law wants to ensure that you transition away from just trading to adding some value, even if it's simple value. People say, they are not factories, they are workshops. Yes, it's okay. That is the goal. You're not going to, a child cannot be born and walk in one day. See?
True.
If we want to build this sector, let us start by doing simple processing.
The president actually called
value
it,
addition.
we've become a supermarket of a sort.
It's what it is, because if you just go and buy and sell through Uganda, but first of all, we are losing critical foreign exchange, and I think the president also highlighted it. So on this point, I don't know why the traders don't understand that policy direction of government. You cannot change the president's mind on issues industrialization, value addition, and so on. This issue was completely irrelevant. The second issue where, so that's on that one, as I've said. The second, on the rest of the issues, we tend to agree. So for instance, an investor should not come and do everything. You come in with your machinery, with your money, we put you in the industrial park and you work. Leave the locals to vent downtown. Don't start going into rural markets. No, that's not your job. So on that one, I agree. And I think the competition law that the president recently signed needs to be given teeth to ensure that certain things are reserved for locals. Every country does that. South Africa, you cannot open a small shop as a foreigner. It's difficult. In India, it's impossible. In China, it's impossible.
Mr. Walgame, there's a concern of traders. Huh?
Yes.
Just a quick one. There is a concern of traders that many manufacturers have also opened up
This is the
wholesale and retail.
Yes.
And it's becoming very unfavorable. It's becoming unfair.
It's unfair. And that's why the competition law is there. In a market-based economy like this one, a competition law provides guidelines for fair play to say, if you're playing football, you cannot go and slap the goalkeeper because he captured your ball.
Okay.
Yes, you play better football, but what we don't want you to do is to go and start fighting on the pitch because the other team is winning. See? Now here we are saying, if you're a foreign investor, it's okay, we need you. You have expertise, you have technology, you have financing. Engage in high-level manufacturing. What locals can do, don't get involved in. Okay? This is the whole point. And, I'll talk later about the meeting with the president, but the president did not touch on any of these other issues. the president just restricted himself to IFRIS. Because you know that president prioritized and said, okay, what's the most important issue that can get the shops open? IFRIS. And that's what he focused on.
True.
So to a certain extent, the traders also made the mistake to bring very many issues.
At the same time?
At the same time. You see, if you've been hungry, you know, they tell people you have been fasting and they bring food. Don't start eating everything at a go. You'll get, your stomach will...
And a stomach upset.
Yes.
It does occur.
Okay. So they say, no, you start slowly, take some water, take some fruit.
So that you don't shock your
you don't shock the
with
system.
the uptake. True.
Yeah? But you can't go to the president with 8 issues. You're talking about investors, talking about... what the president did was clever to just identify the critical issue and to handle that. These other issues should be handled by the system, normally. There's a law now for competition. It's not as strong, but it's a starting point. Okay? On the issue of VAT, the Ministry of Finance should study, because it's Ministry of Finance that makes recommendations on new tax proposals and things like that. So the issue of VAT needs to be studied. This is one of, in fact, this is one of the recommendations we have made in the middle of COVID, that there is a threshold.
You know, in interaction, while interacting with some of the traders, I know you've mentioned that it wasn't right for the traders to throw out a lot,
multiple issues,
you know, a lot of issues that they had, because the president only had a few issues he had come to address. There is also an issue of paying rent in foreign currency, which is becoming quite difficult for the traders. Well, of course, most of the traders who import are not importing in the shilling, so they are used to importing using the foreign currency. But paying their rent using the foreign currency, to some, is becoming quite unfavorable. Not so many of the traders are used, you know, not so many are literates, if I'm to put it in that way. But of course, they are running the money economy today. So we really need to prioritize them as well. On that issue, this has been a wrangle that has been ongoing between traders and their landlords, but it doesn't seem to be coming to an end.
No, this is illegal. Government passed a policy, I don't know, on real estate and so on, and outlawed paying rent in foreign currency, in a kind of foreign currency. But it still takes place, and I think this is just an issue of enforcement. If there are guidelines, if there's a policy, if there's a law that renders certain behavior illegal, let's just ensure that we implement it. See, because you disadvantage traders. Yes, some of the landlords say they borrow in foreign currency, but where you borrow, in what currency you borrow, is your business. You made the business decision to borrow in dollars. You know, no one, it's not the tenants that sent you to borrow in dollars. Now, why do you pass the burden to them? You see, this is our economy is denominated in Ugandan shillings. That's the legal tender we have. So for you to start charging dollars is not something we want to encourage, because you're going to end up dollarizing the economy, like what has happened in Zimbabwe. And then it means you give the government less, because government has certain tools to manage, for instance, the prices of goods and services, through monetary policy. Okay? Now, if people are transacting in dollars, it means you make that redundant. Okay? Because government, for instance, can raise the central bank rate like it has to 10.5 now to manage inflation. But if people are transacting in dollars, it means you have no impact really on that. You're not being very impactful. So I think this is something we need to look into. I know that also the owners of buildings want to cushion themselves against the inflationary pressures, the Ugandan currency changing, going up and down and so on. But I don't think that burden ought to be passed on to traders. So I would say that part of the issue that the traders need to pursue is that.
Well, last week when the traders decided to go on a strike, not only in Kampala, there are those in Jinja, there are those in Masaka. Many joined in solidarity with this because it was a common cause. True. Because they felt that the things that are affecting them are general. And so they took a holistic approach. One would wonder of what impact did this have directly on our economy, because we had 6 days of no business.
You see, the issue is, people must appreciate that Chikubo and these traders are critical in the value chain. You know, in the value chain, you have production, you have marketing, you have logistics, you have storage. See? So when people manufacture, for instance, when a factory manufactures, not every factory has its own distribution chain. Many of them take these products to Chikubo, and these traders now on-sell to others. Okay? So it means that this impact does not stop with the traders. It goes back to the chain. It hits the manufacturers, it hits the farmers who supply the goods, it hits all those people. Okay? Then it also hits government, because government collects money when the economy is running, when people are making profit. But when people are not making money, what are you going to tax? See? So it means this also hurt government itself. The more days that traders take without opening, without operating, it hurts government. It hurts consumers, because you're likely to find shortages of certain goods and services, as I've mentioned. People are not distributing. It means that in certain places, prices may start to go up. In fact, if this had gone on for a very long time, you would now see a rise in certain commodity prices, which can feed into inflation. Okay? So I think that it was good that the president calmed tension, was able to talk to the traders and have this resolved. But I think we ought to learn a lesson. We cannot resolve all our misunderstandings through strikes. The system should work, because people will always have, every time you have more than 5 or 10 people, they'll always not agree on issues. But what mechanisms exist to resolve them? And I think URA should also have a mechanism where people can complain without striking, and for it to be responsive enough to address some of these issues. Because when I look at IFRIS, it's not even a policy issue. If you look at the traders are not saying do away with IFRIS. Of course, there are few are saying do away with IFRIS, but it can't happen. But most traders are saying improve
on the system.
Improve on the system. Let the system be better adapted to our realities. Don't be very aggressive. Don't be very confrontational. Educate us and hold us. We want you to make money, but we also want to make money to stay in what?
In business.
In business. So I think it's a fair proposition. And what URA should do is not to say, our mandate is to collect tax, you don't want to pay tax, we move against you, no, is to say, what are you? The way the president sat from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. listening to the traders. Has any government department spent that much time listening to these people?
No.
So don't you see that there's a lesson for those people to learn from the president, that however busy you are, however important you are, when people raise issues, sit down, listen to them, and reach an amicable solution. Because what the president offered was not very different from what those technocrats had offered the traders anyway. But
he gave room for dialogue.
He gave room for dialogue. He listened them out. He said, we shall go and consider what you're saying. Give me time. He even put a timeline. But now these are people who met them and said, we shall get back to you in 2 weeks. Who is going to wait for 2 weeks?
All right.
But the president said 24th and 7th of May, so people can go back and work with the confidence that this issue will be resolved.
And speaking matters, the president, after the break, we look at the meeting with the president, of what impact it has on the decision of the traders. It had an immediate impact, by the way, because the traders reopened the shop, reopened shops immediately on Saturday. So which means that was an immediate impact. But again, looking in the long run, of what impact was that meeting ahead of that? Also, there is a concern about many traders who feel that the issue is not even the taxes that are high. At times, the accountability of these taxes, the misuse of these government funds, or the misuse of their taxes into various expenditures and the rampant corruption cases, has made others feel it is rather not important to comply to the taxes. More of that conversation is what we are going to be having immediately after the break. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Once upon a time, there lived identical twins who gave birth to beautiful princes and princesses.
Their mothers gave their bodies a lot of care by applying on their skin with baby Junior jelly.
So try it and admire their glowing skin. Fun fact, baby Junior prevents diaper rash, dry and sensitive
Moms
skin.
all over Africa love baby Junior jelly. Baby Junior's the skin. No more worries anymore. Boo, 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 boo. Baby Junior.
Baby Junior. Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja Luo segment. Learn about the famous legend of Jipiri and Labongo and how the Alur, Acholi, Jonam and Japadola Jaluo emerged.
The Luo are basically Nilotic.
We are believed to have come from Baragazelle in the Sudan.
When this colonialism came,
Rorawit
saved the life of men actually.
fought fiercely.
Awich was imprisoned here on that hill, Kololo.
Awich remained the greatest hero in Acholi.
Premiering on Saturday, the 20th of April 2024, 3 to 8 p.m. at Ndere Center. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
The cardinal role of a government is maintaining law and order, safeguarding citizens' rights, and providing essential public goods and services. Throughout its tenure, the government has consistently upheld these principles. This foundation creates an environment conducive to delivering crucial social services to citizens through diverse approaches such as taxation, strategic budgeting, and effective policy implementation. A transformative education system, advancing healthcare provisions, enhancing social welfare, and propelling infrastructure growth, all of which continue to evolve daily to cater to the population's expectations. Supported by a meticulously organized network of ministries, government remains committed to serving its citizens. Coming soon on your public broadcaster, The Front Bench, your interface with the government every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with Joram Paul Sonko, only on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, we are back again and looking into matters traders in Uganda. Last week wasn't a good one for the many Ugandans who usually go downtown Kampala to try and buy goods at a cheap. I think all of you moved in and realized that the shops were closed. For those who are observant enough, you could also see that some shop owners were outside the arcades trying to see whether the situation calms down and they reopen. But then it wasn't business as usual because not so many people were making money. It was a week of losses, but a week of solidarity, if I'm to put it in that way, because the traders this time decided to stick to their own cause until they went on to meet with the president on Friday. Well, our conversation now continues, and as we get into that meeting with the president and of what impact it had, still with my guest this morning, Mr. Algembe, who is the ED of the Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. Mr. Algembe, when you look at the other side of, of the coin, some traders that we interacted with along the way as we were making news stories and the like, were saying paying taxes is not the issue. Others are saying the taxes are fine. But now our issue is every time we pay our taxes, we have come to realize that the taxes are not put into good use. As much as the government is calling for tax compliance and URA is saying traders need to pay taxes, it is a mandate for every citizen to pay taxes. But then many traders are saying the issue is not the taxes. The issue is how are our taxes used. Many cases of corruption here and there, many cases of misuse of government funds, many cases of extended borrowing that is ongoing within the Ministry of Finance. Many traders were saying we are not happy with how our taxes are being used.
I think it's not just traders with that concern.
Every Ugandan is really concerned.
Many of us have concerns with the way taxpayers' money is handled in some instances. Now there's a new concept of what they call service awards. See, so someone has worked, because the way, if you work in public service, you're hired, you're paid a salary,
and some few
and
allowances.
your benefits are made clear. Some positions are pensionable, some positions are not pensionable. So if you talk in a position that's not pensionable, you know from the start it's not pensionable.
True.
So this idea of saying now we are going to create these so-called service awards that are monetary in nature, I think this is one area that we need to look at. And we actually recommend something called a salaries board. Many countries have a salaries board where you standardize. You say if someone has a bachelor's degree in whichever department, they'll earn this. If someone has a master's degree, if someone has a PhD, if someone has served for 20 years,
this is how much
they deserve to get, you see. And then this idea of saying someone has left office.
So we need to give them a...
No, so I'm a Chief Justice, I've left office. And then they say I'll earn the same salary as a sitting Chief Justice. So it means you're going to burden the taxpayers. At some point you're going to have 5 retired Chief Justices
who are earning the same amount
50 million
with the one who is serving.
Yes. If it's little money and you say maybe it's 5 million or whatever, at least for the presidents and the vice presidents, it's a percentage. But this idea of saying you earn the full salary, you get a house, it is furnished, you're entitled to a car, a chauffeur-driven, they call it a chauffeur-driven car.
So, a chauffeur-driven armored car.
So this I think we need to be more frugal as a country, especially considering the time that we are in. Then you also have people who come up with questionable investment ideas, and then they put a demand on the consolidated fund to finance them. You know? Some investors, private, because if you're a private investor and you have a very good idea, there are people there, private, who can fund you. The banks, because the banks, if an idea is good, a bank will fund it. Because money is seated, they are looking for good ideas. But some people have suboptimal business ideas, and they choose to just take them to government because they know that government may not have the mechanism to really interrogate them. You see? So this, I think, is something that we need to look at. You know, there's one investor now is going to get 700 billion. There's another one who took debts and went to government to pay 200 billion. So I think all these we need to say, should we continue doing this, or we set up a special department? I can propose a name: Business Ideas Grant Scheme. Okay? So every Ugandan with a business idea, even John, I can say I have a business idea. I go to this scheme, I submit my business plan, they assess it, they ask me to pitch, and then they say, fine, the government of Uganda will give you this much money, but it will take a stake in your business. This is what a lot of, if you look at the pension funds, for instance, in the Netherlands and in Norway, this is what they do. See? So as Uganda, we need to look at something like this. Instead of just giving away grants to businesses, let's have this scheme where every Ugandan can apply, take his idea, it's assessed. If it's good, they are supported, but government takes an interest in that business so that Ugandans get a return at the end of that.
Okay, now let's get into the president's meeting with the traders. I've wanted to ask what impact it really had. Earlier in our discussion, you mentioned that traders had, had so many issues that they threw at the president's table. Yet they had also other major concerns that they would have first really prioritized. Looking at the meeting, it had a direct impact. Penalties were scrapped off of IFRIS, and then traders reopening their shops the following day. What else?
No, first of all, I want to thank the president for being responsive. You know, the president has a busy schedule. You can't just wake up and put demands on his time. Like me, if I want to see him and I send a letter, you may find that I can only get an opening after 6 months. But now you strike, then you just want to see the president.
You want to see the president tomorrow?
Yes, another person would say, no. Those are issues that ought to be solved at Ministry of Finance level. Solve them and get back to me. But the president was kind enough to move things around in order to accommodate the demands of the traders. Secondly, the fact that he gave them time You know, someone can meet them for 30 minutes. You speak, then he goes out, says, okay, no problem, we shall. But he gave them time. I've told you he sat from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. listening to traders. Okay? So that shows that the president was able to consider this issue important enough to give them that ample time. Now, the other issue is that the president was able to prioritize in his mind what issue can be resolved now and what issues can be resolved later. That's why of the many issues that I've highlighted to you, the president identified the issue of IFRIS as being the most important. And then even within that issue, he found that the issue of penalties, this issue of issuing penalties of 6 million was very unfair, and that's why he stopped them for the meantime. Okay? So the fact that he listened to the traders, the fact that he was able to prioritize the issue, the fact that he was able to identify the most critical issue and address it there and then meant that the traders also made a concession to say, let's reopen our shops. And also the fact that the president gave a clear timeline. You know, someone who wants to confuse may say, we shall get back to you as soon as we consult, but was able to say, on 24th, I'll meet so and so, and on the 7th, I'll meet you again with our position. So I think the fact that the president was able to commit himself in terms of time showed his goodwill, and I think the result was the reopening of the shops. So what I can say is this: instead of just appreciating the president, we should also challenge our officials to pick some lessons, because these issues will reoccur. But are we trying to say that every time, now tomorrow, the interns will strike? The other day, the teachers will do the same. Are we trying to say that all these issues will end up on the president's table? So what we are challenging people out there, if the president has selected you as a minister for health, for finance, and so on, you also pick some lessons. See? Sit down with these people for 6-7 hours and reach an amicable solution, so that you are not delegating all your work to your boss. You see? So for me, that's the lesson we can pick, that if we want our economy to run well, we need to create mechanisms of resolving these contradictions that occur.
Okay.
And that different ministries, departments, and agencies need to learn how best to resolve these problems through dialogue.
Okay, I do have a comment. I do have comments coming through from our dear viewers, and then one viewer says, "Good morning, Joram and Mr. Algembe. This is Regan Ronald Chamanywa, and I believe what Mr. Algembe is talking about is right. But kindly talk about importation value chain, with the taxes imposed, especially those on tools for technical NGOs, i.e., tailoring machines at carpentry." He says there are high charges, especially in the issues of customs, where they are unrestricted, because a time ago he had issues with clearing his container from the UK.
No, I think this is a mistake, and I think we've variously... You know, there are things that are helping Ugandans to become more skilled and to get jobs, because government's mandate is to ensure that this economy can create jobs for our young people. You know, in the National Development Plan, they talk about creating 5 million jobs, over 5 million jobs. Now, if Ugandans are helping you to meet that target, either through skilling or whatever, anything in that regard should be tax exempt. Okay? So if someone has received tools to train young people, and they're not going to use them for business, and the purpose is very clear, they don't need to... I think we need to go back and interrogate this, and I would challenge the Ministry of Finance, the tax department there, because they're the ones that come up with these proposals, to look at this issue again. Because government cannot scale on its own. It has to scale in conjunction with other people. Now, if someone is helping you and then you are charging him, I don't think that's correct. So this is also something that we shall pick up. You know, the Federation does what we call an SME agenda. The key issues that are affecting SMEs that we think need to be addressed in a particular year. This is something that we want to pick up. Why should equipment that's being used to scale be taxed? No, I don't think that should be the case. And so, Regan, thank you for raising that issue. We'll follow up and see that.
And okay, now lastly, from our, our conversation this morning,
Yes.
Mr. Algembe, looking at the future of our small and medium-sized enterprises, we are roughly summing up with this financial year. We're only left with 2 months, if I'm to put it in the right way, May and June, because we're already now in the final quarter of this financial year. We have a new financial year looking up. The Ministry of Finance is also preparing to give us the budget that we shall have. More of, budget cuts are highly expected. But now looking at the future of the people driving this economy from the local perspective up to the micro businesses, what is the state?
No, since COVID-19, the MSME sector has been in a weak state. And I can't say that these businesses are fully recovered. Certain sectors are definitely doing much, much better than they were. The SMEs will continue to play an important role, because unlike foreign investors, SMEs are here to stay.
True.
A foreign investor will say, oh, it's become hard, then you'll go, ShopRite has closed, Game has closed, SMEs can't close. See, if I have my business in Bundiwiju, I'm there to stay. If I have my business in Nebi or Zombo, I'm there to stay. If this one collapses, I open another one. So SMEs are there to stay, and I think government ought to prioritize them. We are not saying foreign investors are not good. They are good. But we must create priority. A visitor and your child, who takes precedence? Your child. So we are asking government, prioritize SMEs. Investors, we should appreciate, will come for specific periods of time and leave. So that's why we shouldn't spend all our time making those investors happy. We need them, but in as much as we are making them happy, we also need to make our SMEs happy and supported. Because at the end of the day, it's these SMEs who are going to create jobs in those rural areas where there are no investors. They're the ones going to buy products from the farmers. They're the ones going to add value. They're the ones going to innovate and skill young people. So this, I think, needs to be appreciated by those that come up with the various policies.
And lastly to you, which issues at hand do you feel traders really need to also try to put across for the government to work upon, whether in the short term or
well,
long term?
I think, we've talked a lot about what government should do for the traders.
Okay.
But we should also tell traders, what should you do for yourselves and what should you do for government? You can't be there. And all that time you are simply asking government, do this for me, do that for me. Sure. So traders need to ensure that they also pay tax. It's their duty, it's their responsibility. Yes, you can be educated and everything, but at the end of the day, you need to pay your fair share. And the truth is some are not paying their fair share. And some people are opposed to it, it's not because it's a bad system per se, or because they don't understand it, but because they want to continue in the old way of doing under-declaring. You see, so traders must appreciate their duty and of paying tax in a timely way and paying the right tax. Now, the other issue is that traders need to do certain things for themselves also. They need to educate themselves. You see, they must be willing to learn. Some of those people, when people go out down to train them, they say, no, we are busy making money. Now, when the system comes and catches them, start making, hey, they didn't educate us. But, so you must be willing to learn. You must be teachable. You see, yes, some of you may not have gone to school and so on, but now you have young children who can come and learn if it's. Bring your child. Say, you started IT, you are sitting. Because now you find a trader, he has an IT graduate. Emily Mujabula, we are looking for work. Bring your son into your business. Let your son learn IFRIS. Let your son help you. You see? But this issue of saying that you want white-collar jobs, me, I'm a trader, I educated my son, I don't want him to come in the business, I want him a white-collar job.
You know where the money is coming
Bring your
from.
son, if you can't employ your business, your child, whom do you think will employ them? Okay? So we must tell our people, you also have a responsibility of learning. If you are beyond learning, then get someone who can learn on your behalf. Okay?
Wow.
Yes.
And such a message, very important, because at times you're training your children through school to seek for jobs, yet the money is coming from a business that you don't want your child to do. Then it becomes quite unfavorable or quite unfair of a thought from you as a trader. But our conversation this morning has been looking at the tax base of the traders and also building up on that meeting between the traders and the president last weekend, which led to the reopening of the shops that had been closed for close to 5 days in Kampala and some other towns where traders were on strike on issues dealing with value-added tax and IFRIS. conversations are coming to bed this particular morning. But further consultations with the Office of the President are ongoing, and on the 7th of May, when the President will remit the traders, we shall find out what was decided and what next for the fate of Uganda's traders. I am Joram Paul Sonko, and I've been having John Walgembe Kakungulu, who is the ED of the Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, in a conversation that I want to believe you, our viewer, has picked something. From the time we started, 6:30 a.m. till now, we have 6 minutes to the top of the hour. I want to wish you all the best for the day, but keep your eyes glued on your national broadcaster as we continue inspiring you. For now, have a good morning and a good day.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Was brought to you by
just take a polite loan of 200k to stock my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hustle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting it. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
Juko.
Yo.
What you go? Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better.
В этом перечитывать, иногда смотреть на него повешен на видном месте. То, с чем мы сталкиваемся, в очередной раз подчеркивает, насколько скоротечно иногда бывает жизнь. Определенные планы есть, да, разумеется. Я хочу работать по специальности, продолжать развиваться. Но мой карьерный рост все-таки меня ожидает. Я хочу продолжить работать по специальности. Есть множество историй. Рассказывая некоторые, самому, наверное, будет трудно сдержать скупые мужские слезы, но да, иногда такое происходит. Ну, буквально сам я недавно принимал участие просто в приеме, к сожалению, безвозвратных уже потерь. Это был молодой достаточно парень, 92-го года рождения. Он был, как положено, доставлен в черном пластиковом мешке. Ну, тут человек, который принимает этих людей, описывает их личные вещи. Так бегло посмотрел его документы, посмотрел содержимое карманов, потому что необходимо это все написать. И вот в одном из карманов он какой-то округлый предмет у него нащупал. Граната. Такой аккуратно достает, там яблоко. Красное яблоко, которое вот буквально, наверное, час назад сорвали, но оно уже расколото напополам. Вот я посмотрел на это так символично, вот когда человеческая жизнь, которая сейчас есть и ничего ей не угрожает, а буквально через час ее уже нету. При входе в очередной населенный пункт, при активных наступательных действиях, они попали под обстрел. Потому что уходящий противник, чтобы замедлить их продвижение, начал артиллерийский обстрел. Собственно, в этот момент из населенного пункта выезжала машина. И один из снарядов по случайности упал прямо непосредственно перед ней. Вследствие разрыва всю просто изрешетила всю эту машину. И она аккуратненько так съехала в кювет, врезалась в столб. Они все разбежались, пока шел обстрел. Через какое-то время все, противник ушел, обстрелы прекратились. Они аккуратно подходят к этой машине, еще издалека видят, что там, к сожалению, уже погибшие. Вероятно, это был папа и мама, то есть мужчина и женщина средних лет. Но боковым зрением заметили там какое-то движение в этой машине. Понятное дело, что они насторожились, неизвестно, кто это, откуда, с оружием. Подошли, открыли двери этой машины, увидели там девушку. Девушке лет, девочка, наверное, даже лет 15-16, если я правильно помню с его рассказов. Вот. Собственно, она была в шоковом состоянии, ничего не могла говорить, не могла отвечать ни на какие вопросы. Она, то есть, не поняла, что с ней произошло. Они ее достали, вывели из этой машины, уже собирались уходить. И тут он говорит, что заметил еще какое-то там шевеление. То есть, откинуто сиденье, еще там что-то шевелится. Он, подождите, сейчас полез туда и вытащил оттуда ребенка, маленького мальчика, наверное, 3-4 лет. Понятное дело, ему уже стало не по себе, то собирался уже отойти от этой машины. Разумеется, мальчик, конечно, сразу же ему сказал: подождите, мы маму забыли, давайте заберем маму. Вот. Но он посмотрел на маму, которую уже не нужно было забирать, и, скажем так, просто его забрал. А посмотрев на своих товарищей, увидел, что все они уже плачут слезами. Так жаль ему было парнишку. То есть в один момент в его душе все рухнуло. Понятное дело, что есть уже консолидированное общественное мнение, сформированное. И я считаю, что все должны быть едины, все должны придерживаться его. Никаких альтернативных точек зрения и никаких альтернативных методов выхода, решения этого вопроса. То есть поставленные цели однозначно должны быть достигнуты. Понятное дело, какой ценой. И, скажем так, все должны постараться приложить максимум усилий и возможностей для того, чтобы просто ускорить достижение этих целей. Не иначе.
The arrest count is rising here at Columbia University and other American colleges, where students are speaking up for Palestine and facing a crackdown by administrators.
A wave of mass protests in support of Palestine is sweeping across U.S. college campuses, but Joe Biden says they're all anti-Semitic. Also ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Congress. Thank you, America.
As the